Geronimo by Shepherd. You're listening to Insanity Radio 103.2 FM, unless you're tuned in on insanityradio.com/listen, in which case you might have hit that watch live button and you might be watching Insanity Radio 103.2 FM. I am White Shadow, and from next week onwards, I'm going to be back on the 2-hour shows from 12 midday until 2 p.m, which means I'll be here on Christmas Eve and New Year's Eve. I'm here for all of the pre-parties. Yeehaw! Ouch. Now, hopefully next week I'll be feeling a little bit better than I do this week, since I seem to have come down with something that I could only describe as throatitis. It's that time of the year. It is a season to be jolly. Now, over the next hour, I am going to be sharing a few lesser-known phobias that you might not have heard of, before making a topic. I'm going to be making a thing of bottled water today. My gosh, do I have a point to make? So stay tuned and join me for the next hour. I'm going to throw on a bit of and there goes the tongue. I'm going to throw on a few more tunes. Stick around. Yeah.
I love the colorful clothes you wear.
Handbags and Glad Rags by the great Rod Stewart. Before that, we were listening to Good Vibrations by the Beach Boys. You're listening to Insanity Radio 103.2 FM. I am White Shadow, and I'm going to make a couple of last-minute changes to the show, because I originally had a list of 18 uncommon phobias that I was going to share with you today, and I think 18 is way too many. So during the next link, I'm going to be sharing about half of those, perhaps, and this link, I've got a few other things I want to talk about. I've got some catching up to do, so yeah, I'm just going to get on with this, because on the 26th of November, I was joined in the studio by the lovely Linda Tarbett, who was talking about the fundraising projects and awareness campaigns started by Linda and her husband Bob for Prostate Cancer UK. And on the 1st of December, they held a charity evening at Raisbury Village Club, which raised £870 towards their current total, which last time I checked was just 50p short of £1,400. I think it's most definitely fair to say that it was a great success, so a big thumbs up to Linda and Bob. Good job, well done, rock on. Last week on the 3rd of December, some of you might have noticed that I wasn't here for my show. I was taking some time out for rest and recuperation. Not only is it the season to be jolly, it's also the season of dark evenings, cold nights, tension, stress, and just general seasonal depression. So if you start feeling like you're struggling, don't forget to take some time out to do something you enjoy, or to help relax, and just self-care. That's the key word, self-care. This week pretty much spells out the end of term for most students here at Royal Holloway. A lot of you are finishing off essays, packing some things ready to go home for Christmas, and for some of you the term ended at the Pack Horse last night for open mic night. We had Simon Williams knocking out some awesome tunes, and we were joined by a local travelling busker who I absolutely love, by the name of Ollie Emmett. Ollie had a full day in London at the SantaCon, which is, it calls itself a parade, but I think it's more of a part parade, part pub crawl. And a full day of that, and he still managed to find his way to the Pack Horse in time to smash out some amazing Irish folk music. And he's just recently got back from a tour of America as well, and it's definitely worth checking out his Facebook page. I think he's awesome. It's called Ollie's Travels. It's OLI''S, Ollie's Travels. We had Philip Kostelecki doing some stand-up comedy, and well, overall, it was a night I will definitely never forget. Now, a lot of you in the local area might have noticed that there's all this weird white stuff falling from the skies today, and for those of us who have not seen it for a long time, I'm going to drop in a reminder that it is indeed snow. As usual, it's not quite enough to be making a snowman, unless, of course, it's a particularly small snowman, but definitely enough to make the roads and pavements extra slippery. So if you're going to go out and about, I'd recommend trying to wear something that's going to give you some extra grip on the roads and the pavements, because on the way down here I did some real surfing. I felt like I was in a level of Crash Bandicoot or something. That was entertaining. Again, a brief shout out for the Pack Horse, because I'll drop another reminder closer into the time, but the Pack Horse are hosting a New Year's Eve celebration on the 31st of December. The tickets are £30, and from 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. that ticket is going to entitle you to 2 hours of bottomless Prosecco, among other things, and there's a non-alcoholic alternative with the tickets just £20 instead of the 30. For those of you who don't want to wake up on New Year's Day with a hangover, I'm going to go and see if I can keep my throat in one piece, so I'm going to put on a few more tunes. Stick around, I'll be back shortly.
Well, you ain't never caught a rabbit. You ain't no friend of mine.
Hound Dog by Elvis Presley. Before that, we were listening to Umbrella by the Baseballs, one of my favourites. I absolutely love the Baseballs. You're listening to Insanity Radio 103.2 FM. I am White Shadow, and earlier in the show I said I was going to share a few lesser commonly known phobias, and I think I might dive straight into that. I'm just going to start getting on with this list, and I'm going to see how many of these I can pronounce without stumbling over my words. First on the list is, it's already beginning, Omphalobia. There we go. Omphalobia. Amphilophobia. There we go. This might take a while, guys. This might take a while. Amphilophobia is a fear of belly buttons. The people with this phobia don't want to see or touch a belly button, and some sufferers have reported having a fear that their insides could spill out of the belly button, which is quite a scary thought, actually. Next on the list is linonophobia, which is a fear of string. In many cases, the fear comes from a traumatic experience with string in the past, or some people have reported that watching a horror or TV movie with somebody being tied or kidnapped with string or rope of some kind has ended up starting to struggle with that very linonophobia. There's diapnophobia, which is the fear of dining in groups, which reportedly usually gets triggered by something like a very, very bad blind date. Now, it would have to be an exceptionally bad blind date for somebody to end up with a phobia of dining around people. And I'm sure there have been a few disasters too. But yes, pogonophobia. Pogonophobia, this is an interesting one. It's the fear of beards. It usually stems from a frightening incident that involved a bearded man, but just as often as not, there's the thoughts of men with beards being generally dishonest people, which I'm sure is definitely not true, but it's there. It is a phobia. It is a fear of beards. We have Chloephobia, which is not a fear of people named Chloe. It is a phobia of newspapers. One person named Diane Freelove, who has struggled with Chloephobia for more than 25 years, has reported that she doesn't like the feel of them. If she touches a newspaper, it makes her skin feel like it's crawling, and she can't stand the smell of it either. Next one is another all of these are quite interesting, but decidophobia. Decidophobia is the fear of making decisions. Now, it isn't just about struggling to decide what to watch on Netflix. It makes it nearly impossible for sufferers to decide on anything, from what to eat or whether or not they should get married. And those with the phobia don't trust themselves enough to make any proper decisions, and they might end up relying on somebody else or something a bit more external, like astrology, to help them make decisions. Now, the next one on the list is bogeyphobia, which, again, is not a fear of bogies. I think somebody needs to pick these names a wee bit better. Bogeyphobia is a fear of the bogeyman. Sometimes the fear of the mythical bogeyman continues into adulthood, and I'm sure some of us still get the urge to check under our bed sometimes, especially after watching a very scary movie. The theory is that this stems from watching one too many horror movies and scary movies, but for me, I lose track of how many times parents have said, if you don't go to bed, the bogeyman will come and get you. Yeah, the last one on my list for today, the last one is going to be the pediophobia, which is the fear of porcelain dolls or talking dolls. And a lot of us have seen films like Chucky, and I know I could easily get conscious of the presence of porcelain dolls in particular. My grandmother's house, there's probably about 20 porcelain dolls on a display cabinets and sideboards just staring at me with a vacant gaze. And I think if I was stuck in a room with them and my sister's talking Cabbage Patch doll, I most probably would have a meltdown. I'm going to put on a few more tunes. Let's find something that's going to make us a little more happy. Stay tuned.
It might seem crazy what I'm about to say.
Ho Hey by the Lumineers. Before that, we had Happy by Pharrell Williams. You're listening to Insanity Radio 103.2 FM. I am White Shadow, and I said I was going to talk a bit about some bottles of water and bottled water and water bottles, and I'm just going to jump straight in there because I'm going to be rambling otherwise. See, it was only about 50 years ago that the thought of buying bottled water when it was freely available from the tap would have seemed totally ridiculous to most people. But at the moment, today, sales are higher than they've ever been before. Now, little history lesson. The first documented case of commercially distributed bottled mineral water dates back to 1767. It was sold in glass bottles by Jackson's Spa in Boston, and it was promoted as a therapeutic product, and it was believed that drinking or bathing in the water could cure a lot of common ailments. Cheap plastic bottles have been around since 1947, but it wasn't until a stronger, high-density polyethylene was introduced in the 1960s that they became more widespread. The invention of polyethylene, or PET bottles, in 1973 took their use to a whole new level. Bottled water didn't really take off in America until 1977, following a £3.7 million advertising campaign from the French brand Perrier. It was targeted at sophisticated baby boomers, and the sparkling water was promoted as a high-status, classy drink with the tagline, "Earth's first soft drink." That sounds pretty classy, doesn't it? It does. Now, in 2016, sales of bottled water overtook fizzy drinks for the first time ever. According to the Beverage Marketing Corporation, the nation consumed 39 gallons of bottled water per person, compared to 38.5 gallons of fizzy drinks. And, this is not all bad news for the fizzy drink companies, though, because Coca-Cola, Pepsi, and even Nestle all have their own ranges of bottled water, and they're some of the biggest producers of bottled water in the world. Global consumption of bottled water has rocketed during the past decade from 47 billion gallons in 2007 to a predicted 86 billion gallons by the end of 2007, according to Statista.com. That works out around a 10% consumption increase every year. And in 2016, according to research by The Guardian, more than 480 billion plastic drinking bottles were sold worldwide. If you stack them on top of each other, that's going to reach more than halfway to the sun. And the company Brita estimates that America alone uses enough plastic water bottles every year to stretch around the world more than 190 times. And I already feel like some of you might know where I'm heading with this. If the trend continues to grow, as it is right now, environmental campaigners predict that the annual sales of plastic bottles will reach $500 billion by 2021. Now, on a side note, something that surprises me, around the world we spend £74.5 billion on bottled water every year, according to the Water Project. And at around an estimated price of about 90p per bottle. Your average bottle is 300 times more expensive than tap water. Although, I have seen a couple of claims suggesting that it could be even higher than that, but yeah, 300 times sounds like a fair estimate. Although Could you imagine, can you imagine spending 300 times more on anything else? That would be about £1,070 for a Big Mac, or about £603 for a cup of coffee. So, I mean, why are we willing to spend that much more on bottled water? Is it because they're from natural sources? Well, water companies like to promote their products with images of natural springs and ice-topped mountains, but according to the Safe Drinking Water Foundation, it's estimated that nearly a third of all bottled water is simply elaborately filtered from the tap. In 2007, PepsiCo were brought under pressure to update the label on their product Aquafina to make it clearer that it was tap water. I think the previous wording, bottled at the source, PWS, was changed to the Aquafina in this bottle is purified water that originates from a public water source, PWS. Nestle and Coca-Cola have also been accused of willfully misleading consumers, but I'm going to stop rambling for a minute. I'm going to put my throat back on. I'm going to put on a few more tunes, and I will continue this conversation after I've got some smashers lined up. Rock on. Royals by Lord. Before that, we had Human by Rag and Bone Man. You're listening to Insanity Radio 103.2 FM. I am White Shadow, and I've been talking about just how much the growth of bottled water consumption has, grown over the past decade, and I'm going to jump straight back in there because on average only 1 in 6 plastic bottles are recycled, with the rest being thrown into landfill, meaning that almost 70 billion plastic bottles are thrown away globally each year. And with less than 1% of plastic water bottles being recycled more than once, this means that if the trend continues, landfills will be full of as much as 26 million pounds of plastic, which is around 13,000 tonnes of plastic by the year 2050. Now, most plastic bottles are assumed to take between 450 to 1,000 years to fully biodegrade, but the new polyethylene bottles that I mentioned earlier, the PET bottles, are not biodegradable. And according to Greenpeace, 12.7 million tonnes of plastic end up in the oceans every year, and as much as a third of the world's sea turtles have consumed plastic. On top of that, the Pacific Institute estimated that around 60 million barrels of oil are currently needed each year to produce the global plastic bottle needs. That's the equivalent of keeping around 4 million cars on the road for a year. And again, ironically, it takes more water to produce a plastic water bottle than the bottle can even carry. It takes around 46 fluid ounces of water to make a 35 fluid ounce bottle. And even more fuel is being burned to transport imported and exported bottles around the world. Exact figures are hard to estimate because the methods and distances vary so much, but in general, transportation forms a third of a bottle's carbon footprint. Imported bottles use around 2.5 to 4 times more energy than local brands. And the excessive consumption of fossil fuels to make plastic water bottles is one of the many contributors to rising carbon emissions as well, which is a key cause of climate change. It's estimated that producing 1 tonne of PET plastic produces around 3 tonnes of carbon dioxide. And while millions of pounds are spent on bottled water around the globe every year, 1 in 10 people on the planet don't even have access to clean water at all. According to WaterAid, a total of 844 million people are going without basic clean water, and around 289,000 children under 5 years of age die every year due to diseases caused by poor sanitation. That's 1 child every 2 minutes. That, in the time it takes me to do a 1-hour show today, that's about 30 children around the world will have died because of dirty water. That just, wow, that's, so as an overview, we are burning We're burning up fossil fuels on a massive scale, creating carbon emissions that are the main cause of climate change and global warming, which is destroying natural habitats globally, from the rainforests right out to the Antarctic. And we're wiping out entire species while producing over 1 million tonnes of non-biodegradable waste, much of which is ending up in the oceans and killing a lot of the sea life, while almost 300,000 children die every year because of a lack of clean water. For the sake of paying around 300 times more than tap water for water in a bottle, almost a third of which having come from a tap in the first place. Save the World by Swedish House Mafia. You're listening to Insanity Radio 103.2 FM. I am White Shadow, and I did not realise I have been talking so much that I have run out of time. So I have been told that this next song should be my outro, and that I should follow it up with this. So stay tuned, we'll see you next week. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, people of all ages, let's get ready to rumble!